Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. We're very excited to have what has become our largest webinar yet. And so we're very excited for that. For some items here, at the end of the webinar, we will be having a drawing for coffee to be handed out and mailed to you. So if you stay the whole time and you win, just post your address in the chat and we'll get that mailed out to you. We also do have an announcement. You guys have been voting for topics you'd like to hear about. And so in 2 weeks, we'll be starting automating processes in Site Stacker series. And so we're gonna go over multiple webinars over this and really do a deep dive in automation, because that's been hands down the one you guys have been interested in. So if you're really interested in a specific topic, make sure you let us know by voting, but also make sure to sign up for that one. Some of the things we'll cover today will also be helped by automation processes. So let's share the screen here. So today we've got kind of an interactive piece here with mastering data visualization. And so we're going to go through this. All right, so what you can do is you can use your phone to sign up for this Menti thing. And what it's going to do is going to allow you to vote and interact. And you're going to let us know the kind of pieces that you're interested in, the kind of things we're going on, and make it a little more interactive for us. So you can go ahead and sign up with your phone or through the link and the code. Nice, we got some people joining in. And if you ever have a question, we will address questions at the end. You can post it in the webinar chat and we'll go back to it here at the end. So if something comes up, you don't have to remember it, just go ahead and write it down, and then we'll come back and make sure we get some answers out there. All right, so let's start on this. Data itself can be hard, and that's really a reality of today's day and age. And 74% of businesses say they want to be data-led, and that's across all businesses, large and small. But when surveyed, only about 29 say they're actually good at connecting analytics to action. And that's really the problem we're here to solve. We want to be able to take analytics and be able to take data that needs to get to certain people to act on it, not just to see it, not just to think about it, but to act on that data and to solve that problem. And so we're going to spend today's hour going through and talking about that. And I know this doesn't mean zero decisions are made without analytics, but it means that feeling of like we're making more decisions or we're making more actions with less data than we want. And so that's really what we want to do. And that can be multiple things. That can be so much as trying to get the data out, or also having the insights of what does this mean? How do we act? And sometimes that means going a layer deeper. And what happens is when we don't have all this information, it leads us to decisions based on feelings. And a lot of you are very well-experienced professionals. And so you've got a lot of gut feelings that have led you the right way. And that's wonderful. What we want is we want those gut feelings combined with true data that lets you inform those things. So you know what's right, and you know where you can do, and you don't have that misinformation that the feeling is one way, but the reality might be slightly different. The other area is over and investing in different areas. So often we see over investing, and we tend to be more critical on that, but it's really hard sometimes to catch where we're under investing, because it's a place we're already not looking at enough. And so that's one where we really want to use data to say, hey, look, there's an opportunity here that's ripe for the picking, or is not being leveraged the same way other opportunities are. And trying to find those can be difficult, but also when you can find a place in the data, you say, all right, let's try that. And so we're gonna try to provide some solutions for that. It also can lead to a poor understanding of donors. Sometimes we think donors act one way because the people we speak to is a very small percentage of who they are and how they feel about things and how they interact. But there's a much larger number of people. And I've had the privilege to work with many of you on here today. And I know there's no way you can speak to all your donors. It's just overwhelming. There's too many of them, which is a wonderful thing. But that's where we need to say, all right, we got to make some more generalized ideas, and we got to try to understand who they are in larger pieces, not just by talking to them. The talking is important, but we can get poor understanding of who they are overall. Is the person we talk to a great representation of everyone, or a poor representation of it? And then risk management challenges, trying to know what are our leading and lagging indicators for problems or for opportunities. Are we having a problem with recruiting early, or are we going to find out later when we don't have enough applicants at the end of the year? Or are we having people leave because they're not funded, or are we having people leave for some other reason? And so trying to get those indicators in front of the right people earlier, so we can get more of those leading indicators to say, hey, we need to make more efforts here, or shift some kind of priority, and whatever that might be, trying to really manage that risk option so that we can act upon it before it's too late. And then the missed opportunities, whether that be missed opportunities with donors, specific individuals, recruits, but it's too easy just to not get the right information from the right person. Maybe we have a $100 donor advised fund donation come in, and it doesn't get to the donor development team. And what really that means is there's someone out there that has a really high capacity that was invested enough to make a donation, and they at least should have a phone call for us to get to know them. But maybe that never gets to the right person, right? Without having the right data in front of the right people, we can really miss things. And so let's interact here. What are your challenges? These are kind of some of the most common challenges that businesses say, that it's data quality. They don't know what's there, that people maybe have put weird things in there, or there's cultural resistance. Hey, we've always done it this way, and we're not real interested in changing that. Maybe there's a skills gap. Hey, we just don't have the talent. Maybe there's technology. Either we don't have the technology, or we feel like we don't know how to use it. Or maybe there's a cost piece, like, hey, the things we found looked really expensive. So what are they? And so we're gonna dig into these real specifically to figure out what they are. But as you can see, it looks like everyone's saying, hey, we're really struggling with technology to a degree. But and this kind of makes a lot of sense for us. We know, we've worked with a lot of you. A lot of you are very ministry focused, and a lot of this technology and data and skills with working with data can really take a back burner sometimes, because it's all about field work. It's all about the mission. And we love that. We really think that's a great priority to have, but we'd love to come beside you guys and dig further. All right. Really great insights here. So I think a lot of you are going to feel like you're not alone either. So hopefully that helps there. All right, the importance of data accessibility. This is a really critical point on data visualization, of getting data to the right team members. And we got kind of the image here of, hey, if there's 3 people, there's 3 ways to connect. If there's 4 people, well, it doubles how many connections they can have. They can have 6 connections, and it just goes up and up and up. And sometimes it's really easy to say, hey, we're going to put another person involved in this. And sometimes that just makes it more complicated and more difficult. And so, but then I know some of you, none of your organizations are represented in these number of people, right? That the complexity is just way out there, because you've got really large field teams scattered all over the world. And it's one thing for a small business to say, hey, we need some insights into our data. They've got one location, it's domestic. They can speak to all their employees in person. The majority of their communication can be done that way. But for you guys, that's not the case for the vast majority of you. That you're trying to do things at a totally different scale of complexity. And that's really what adds a lot of that burden to trying to get great tools. And so part of this is really referring to how easy this data can be accessed and comprehended. And what happens is, the more complex data we have, the more critical it is for decision making, but also it becomes more inaccessible. The more there is, the harder it is. And that really makes it difficult. So we've got kind of 2 aspects to this. We've got a people side of this, and that's the data silos of data being stored in isolated systems. Maybe we need multiple systems, and that fragments our result. It duplicates our processing of it. It can duplicate efforts to interpreting it. And it really hampers getting a unified view of, hey, we've got all this stuff happening here, but we don't know what's happening over there, or maybe it's just specific teams. We don't know what team A is doing and team B really needs to know. The quickest way to do that is having those cross-department meetings and helping promote the data sharing and transparency of communicating what that is. But then there's a tool aspect as well. But really, this is the people side of things, because some of this knowledge silo is also truly process knowledge of who knows how to do X, Y, Z, not just who can see the insights. We've got that skills gap because really overcoming these data challenges requires more than just technology. It truly does require a people, a cultural, and education initiative, and that's really essential. A complexity of integration. Maybe some of you have tried to get different tools to talk to each other, but the more complex this data is, the harder it is to get to talk to each other, and things become isolated or stale or really complex just to consolidate it and get it there. But that's a tool problem, right? And then there's data quality, which inaccuracies, inconsistencies can really lead to people losing trust in it, or having incorrect insights and really affecting our credibility of data. So let's solve a couple of these. Having a single source of truth. This really is about creating an access that one person or one place to go to get a level of experience that can really mitigate a lot of these data silo and discrepancy risks. We don't have stale data. We know everything is in a single place. And many of you, that's going to be SiteStacker, right? And we'll check this, right? How many of you have a single point for reporting on your data? And this will kind of give you an idea of like, hey, yes, we have one place we can go and we can see everything, or we don't. And that's a problem for us. And what I would say is really take a hard look on anything that we can consolidate. Should be a low-hanging fruit of, hey, we can look at that for potential, because what that can do is that can take a lot of this complexity and a lot of this burden of data off of your teams. And maybe it's required, maybe that's a necessary tool, but I think it needs to be a real conversation of how can you reduce the complexity of this footprint. All right, another piece is to upskill your team. So skills gap was one of the big parts of it, right? Most likely you have people in your organization or in your network that would be so happy to take a shot at this challenge. We've got a young man here who's an intern. He has less than 100 hours of SQL knowledge, of SiteStacker knowledge, of everything. And we've had him building complex reports because he's passionate about it and he's interested in it. He's taken on his own initiative to do that because he's loving the challenge of it. And so we've got other groups I think are signed up today. Multiply, they're very quick to say, hey, we're not IT people, but they jumped right into the tool of business intelligence and really trying to own this piece. I'd say most likely you can find someone to champion this in your organization. All right, then there's the system side of this. So this is where we have this overwhelmingly massive amount of raw data, which can be really intimidating, especially if you don't have those training or skill sets to deal with it. And it makes it harder for a broad audience to really get any kind of insight out of this data. The first solution to that is to visualize it. As soon as you can see data in a visual manner, you can consume far more points to say, okay, is this out of bounds? Is this inbounds? Where does this work? So that's a really big tool to keep in your back pocket for when your data just gets larger and larger. And all of us live in a world where the data is just overwhelmingly large. There's the physical cost, right? Of like, hey, there's all these tools. We just keep adding more. And these monthly services and all that can really add up. And if it's a tool used by just a small department, right, it can add a large complexity to that. Then there's scalability. We really want to have tools that can grow as our organizations and data grow. And systems that aren't scaling or aren't convenient only add to our problem of data challenges. And so we want a tool that has the way to get this out to different team members. And then there's the security aspect. And there's a lot of focus on specifically the compliance and regulations that can make data hard to access. And depending on if this is like an old system where we had to VPN to a back office to get access, and or if it's just, hey, I have to ask so-and-so to do this for me because I don't have access, whatever it is, what happens is it really sometimes defeats the purpose because a lot of people look for workarounds and they're going to take this data out of a system and they're going to put it into another system, maybe a third party. They're going to put a spreadsheet or something else that now holds all this data that we want secure that's no longer in our security parameters. It's no longer in a system that we're aware of. And now it's out there and we don't know as much about it because a team member doesn't have the right role-based access. So getting role-based access, passwordless login, right? Single sign-on, making sure there's multi-factor authentication, and having a balance of that access and security all in the same place is really critical. All right, so we're going to switch a little bit now, and we're going to go to how we can actually fix this, right? The problem is pretty clear, and I think based on sign up, you guys understand, hey, we've got a data issue, and we really need a way to solve this. So how can we make progress? And really, I want to say, how can we make progress in the next week or so? Like, let's not let these ideas and this need pass, but let's act on it. So we've got the SiteStacker dashboards. So SiteStacker really approaches this data problem in a handful of ways. One, we really want to enable visualization, charts, graph, other visual elements that we can see data in a clear and intuitive manner. But there's more to it. There's lots of tools where we can go say, okay, we need to see the data. Well, there's an interactivity to the data. We want to be able to interact with it, filtering, drilling down to really specific results, interacting with it, maybe modifying things, changing things, digging really deep, but also finding the things that are a problem and maybe addressing them on the spot. So we really also need a way to interact with it. The other piece we do is it's real time, that it's really got to be displayed in real time so we can see the most updated information. Because anytime you take it out of a system and you put it somewhere else, it begins getting stale day one. And sometimes that's fine for a period of time, but sometimes that's not. We need to see data more consistent because maybe it's not just happening once a week or once every couple of days, but it's taking a lot more effort. And there's customizations. And that's really where you need to be able to take the metrics and KPIs that are most relevant to your needs and get them in front of the users that really need them. And that goes into our last point of accessibility, of being able to get access to this anywhere in the world. I was talking to someone just this morning, they'll be in Africa next week, and they're going to take their computer and they're going to need access to all these things, right? And they can do that right through these dashboards, these SiteStacker dashboards that we can surface on the web securely everywhere in the world. And we can put all these pieces together. The visualization, the way they can interact, that it's real time, customizable, and they can access it anywhere. And so what we're going to do next is really go through what tools you have available. The vast majority of you signed up are SiteStacker clients. And so what I want to tell you is there is a whole host of tools that are here for you. I know you flag technology as a major challenge, but I also want to say you have a strength in that as well, that there is a major tool here for you. And there's an awareness, and we know that, and that's why we're here. And so we're going to go through some of this. So let's talk about modules and grids for dashboards. These are the easiest to change. They're highly customizable within the limitations of the data that they have access to. So these are things like the CRM grid. And this is a grid of CRM contacts. And really, you can get that grid filtered by just about any point on a CRM record, entities, record types, contact info, anything like that. And what I highly recommend is go, if you've got these grids and you've never touched them or you haven't looked at them in a long time, go audit the filters and columns, go check what your team needs. These are really easy things to make minor customizations that can really unlock potential for your teams. If they just need one more data point, or if there's too many data points there that we added a lot of things for them at one point and they really don't use, but a handful of them, we can take that noise away, right? Keep it really simple, but also you can take those modules and change them drastically, right? You can filter dynamically off a logged in person and a relationship they have with a CRM record. A lot of you use our missionary dashboards. That's how we enable that piece, right? We automatically log relationships with these people and receiving people. But also this can work great for partnership development teams. This can work great for territory based roles. Maybe it's church engagement or anything like that, that we can filter CRM records down to say, hey, I have this very specific relationship with everyone in my grid. And now I've got that list right there. And all the contact info I need is there. And also you can click that record. Say the changes. Sound better than the other?
No, use the
Okay.
button. Here we go.
All right. Better?
Sounds good.
All right. All right. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. All right. So I don't know where we lost audio, but we'll just go back to, you can really filter by people, by the relationship they have, to really make it dynamic, that whoever's logged in is getting a totally different grid based on who they are. Again, they can save their filters for repeated use. So if they're building complex filters, they can do that and just have them saved there and ready to go. You can also display records on a map. We've got an example of that. And so it can geocode it, and you can see this in anywhere you have CRM records in that grid. And also when you click those pins, it's going to have the entities or whatever fields and names you've got on those records. It's going to pop up for you. So if you've got people on deputation, traveling for fundraising, doing donor development, trying to find what other churches or people we can invite to a church we're already speaking at, this is a great tool here. And we're happy to walk you through any of this and figure out how to get there, right? We'll talk more about follow-up, but this is a great tool for those teams. Also on this CRM, before we get too far here, you can also filter by a location radius, and you can also add CRM records. There's that create record button there. That you can create records and already apply a relationship and a record type. For teams, that's critical. They will immediately have that record on their dashboard without having to go anywhere else. You can send records to MailChimp if you're using MailChimp right from here, and we'll sync record types as tags in MailChimp so that you already have your segmentation. So while you might be using two tools, you really have a single source of truth of the CRM that's being pushed over to MailChimp. You can also bulk add and remove record types from a CRM grid. So if you've got it filtered to people you want to target, you can then add a record type. Or if we're wanting to remove record types, we can do that in bulk as well. And that makes it really easy to keep those records clean and keep that data quality high. There's also a way you can label that email link in there, as they call it, add a mail to link, which when you click the email, it will open up the email enabled on your device, whether that's your laptop or your phone. That makes it really, really mobile friendly, that if you've got a person that's using these grids on their phone, they can click that, it opens up the email on their phone, and they're ready to send that email. And another piece to really note on that is if with SendGrid, we can set up SendGrid inbound, where you can send that email specifically to a URL, email address set up, and it will log it as an activity in CRM. So really quickly, you can get two things done at once, of both logging data that all you have to do is blind carbon copy another email and send it out. But also you've gone right from the grid to your own personal email, write the email and get it logged all very simply. You can link to a owned campaign of a specific item, like a child's record or a missionary's record. And then you can link to that CRM detail page. And so we'll look a little bit more at that. And so from here, you can have all kinds of quick actions. Some of you are using some of these where you can log notes, you can manage relationships, you can assign people to a workflow, you can send people to MailChimp. You can get these high level metrics, right? Some of them will have giving at the top, but you can also have this workflow progress module knowing exactly where an applicant is in the process, right from their CRM record to check in on that. You can also publish a menu at the top that we can pass that person through these links to also see further grids filtered by that person. Which also within this can also accommodate a number of other grids that will filter already by the person you're viewing. So that's the historic giving grid can be down there and show you just their giving. And really the great thing about that, it's not just showing their giving, it's showing their giving, any soft credit gifts they have. So if they're giving through some kind of foundation, if they're an affiliated donor from giving from a church, right? We can see that connection. We're going to see all that giving through that. Any activities can be seen on that grid, and you can also log and update them. Any files can be uploaded and managed there. And files, one of the other pieces is you can use security tags. So very, very specific files can be uploaded, and only certain people will even know that file exists unless they have access to that same permission the security tag is connected to. You can also configure exactly what fields someone can access. So if we need to have a user that needs really limited editing and create rights, but needs to consume and see this data, we can do that. We can have that set up for what they can see. Also, all the relationships are there, and you can link right to the other detail page of the other person in that relationship. So if we've got, is the pastor of, relationship on this record, we can click that church, open that up, and now see their full profile as well. And you can have all the notes there and all kinds of stuff like that. All right, another key piece here is you can actually publish business intelligence reports on this page, and it filtered by that person. So in this example, it's got me in here. We've got kind of some of the standard metrics of given this month and given all time and subscribe to MailChimp. But also we've got some custom reports here of the categories I'm giving to, my average gift versus recurring gift. And these are custom reports that were built by our team, but have been able to be published really dynamically. So we can get really specific insights that teams are looking for that really cater and narrow down on a specific record. Because one, this is important to a high level of all people's average gift and average recurring gift and the categories they give to, but also now we can see this in the context of a specific person. All right, so we also have historic giving grids that you can do a number of fields and filters that can be either actively applied or pre-applied to already narrow it down. Maybe we've got a group that works with very specifically a specific project or a specific category of projects, and they can be limited just to that. That one also can be displayed as a map. So people that only need to see transaction records or something like that can also see it in a map, or if that's just how you're wanting to consume it. Another key piece that I think many of you aren't aware of is you can configure aggregates at the bottom of those historic giving grids, where it'll give you a total, it'll give you an average, it'll give you a minimum donation and a maximum donation. That can also be configured on this record detail page. So I can really quickly look at someone's record, know their smallest donation, their largest donation, their average, and their total in the transactions piece. Those can either, each one of them can apply to filters also added if you want to filter down real quick and see, hey, what's the total in this filtered set or the average in this filtered set, or you can leave it there. Donor development teams, that's a key item for them, that they could have a real good guess of what to kind of ask this donor for, what's the biggest gift they've given, what's the smallest gift they've given, and what's kind of their average specific to that person or to their total groups. Also, that historic giving gift grid can link to the donor, the soft credit person, or the receiving person. So if you're really trying to dig deep on, hey, who else is giving through Fidelity, you can open that up and see that. We also have activity grids and where you can see all the activities as a whole. Those can be filtered by specific types of activities, content grids. That one we'll get into more of this custom dashboard piece, but you can see displayed content. You can edit the content. You can limit it down to saying people can edit really specific fields like, hey, we only want them to edit the body of this text, right, of this content item, or you can even have people create their own content items there. That's one we'll get into here in a second. Then you got your mobilization side of process grids where it's a task list. They see all their tasks and only their tasks right in front of them. Display all the submissions of certain forms, and you can open those up and see exactly what was submitted in that form, workflow progress as a whole, or published on that piece. And so that's kind of a lot of the tools and Legos in the toolbox, right? And now we come to the idea of custom dashboards, where we're going to take all these pieces and fit them together to get a really unique outcome. And one of those, what we talked about, of like content grids. Maybe we've got all these missionaries on the field and we say, hey, we're looking to recruit people, and where is our best people to say, hey, I have found an opportunity where someone can serve, and I can already get them, a description of what it would look like, what experience would be needed. We can have them submit that opportunity right in their dashboard, where maybe they're already going to see all their giving, their donors. They'd say, hey, yeah, I have an opportunity here. You can get that as a draft form of content, and then you can decide to publish that right to the web or not and get applicants for it. And so this kind of creativity of, hey, we can source these things from a wide variety of people. And that's really just a custom outcome configured here, right? This also can be done to service board members, that we can give them a really high level view, right? We can give them real-time insights into these things, right? That if they want to come see it, now maybe we don't want them to see, the granular details because they're not in it every day, but we can give them those higher summary pieces. Those are things you can do. Missionary dashboards, they can be taken to a whole nother level of surfacing maybe affiliated churches or different fundraising options on deputation that we say, hey, here's a whole bunch of people. Maybe these are people you should be calling. Again, service it on that map and combine that where they can really get that fully funded aspect of, hey, if we're already coming back for a furlough or a visit or whatever we need to do, maybe we can find potential partnerships through that. Also, if you've got some kind of process you need them to complete, you can publish tasks and publish forms. We need a form filled out every year. They can go fill it out right there on the dashboard where they may already be going. So they get that single place to surface everything. And we can really customize it to your needs, because those things are going to vary greatly. Donor development teams, while the fundraising tools that come out of the box are great, we know donor development teams really do need really specific customized grids. So whether that be a relationship specific based grid that says, hey, here's all the people you're assigned, or maybe it's, hey, here's all the accounts we've labeled as potential, or maybe we're just trying to mine for opportunities to say, hey, here's kind of the things we think are criteria that fit the people you should be calling. Or even for sponsorship teams, field dashboards, where we need to say, hey, we're going to customize a CRM grid to show children to a very specific place. And we're going to give people very specific access, because we don't want them to have too much, but we want them to have enough that they can contribute. And it lightens the load of the back office team and also gives them better insight into what we know, right? Here's the record of these children, and maybe they can go update fields, entities, grade, school, location, whatever it might be. Or maybe we can have them actually upload more content of saying updates to certain things, right? Programs or notes. Any kind of remote team that has a need that's really specific. This is a great tool for them, that they can have exactly what they need. All right. The other tool we have in this toolbox is our business intelligence. And this really becomes the most complex. And we've really been building into more complex outcomes. What I want to recommend you is, if you're in that first outcome, own that outcome. Go ahead and customize those grids and modules, own what you've got, and take it further. And then if you want to go deeper, go into those custom dashboards. Let's get the right teams, the right dashboards they need. And then once we've gotten there, that's when you're ready to really say, okay, we want to take on business intelligence. And this is the tool that really can unlock insights from a wide variety of tools. So this is going to open up reporting on multiple data sets, right? And you can create a single report that really combines all kinds of data sets. Sponsors that also signed up for a newsletter, or that also sneezed on Tuesday, right? These are the kinds of things you can really dig deep into and summarize them, but also you can summarize them in many different ways. You can have one report that surfaced many different ways and views. One team just needs to see a summary. One team needs to see a real granular detail. Another team just needs to see the people that are specific to them. And what you can do now is you can start surfacing this to a lot of people with one body of work, right? We built one report, and now we can service to multiple teams across the organization. Or we can take one body and maybe we need to surface it to people that are responsible for specific categories, but they need the same insights. We can filter those views. And so that really leverages this work. You can create smart columns that can calculate within rows of all kinds of things, right? Hey, if they're over $5,000 yearly donations, we want it to say a specific thing, right? We're going to call out specific metrics so people can see it, because those are some of our internal terms, mid donors, major donors, whatever that might be, or other aspects, right? Certain number of days beyond a recurring schedule, we're going to call it late and make sure everyone calls someone that's labeled late rather than has to look for a number. You can also have all kinds of quick filters, right? A date range filter that makes it really quick to filter, report value filter where you have a specific set of values in that report that you want to have a pick list, or a real quick year-month filter, right? Drill down year and month or just year. And then you have your standard very complex filters where you can get and or logic built into that, where we can have a whole set of things of, hey, we want all these things to be right, or we want all these other 5 data points to be right, and then we can see what results we get. So before you even have to start digging into custom reporting, you can take a lot of what you have and just get heavy on filtering and get down to that. All right, some ways we can win. You can plan for really constant improvement. You don't have to take this on overnight, right? But make progress. Keep it simple in the fact of don't give them access to everything. Give them access to the metrics that matter most for them. And build it around roles. That way it's easy to put team members into those roles and take them out of those roles as they're needed. And that way it becomes not just hey, I need X and Y to see this, but it's, hey, everyone in this department needs to see these things, and I want them to see these things because it's important for them to know what's going on so that when they interact with people, they have that insight. And then we really want to build dashboards for people. And that's kind of the piece that we want here. We want high engagement. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be engaging. And so what you're going to do is if you start giving people things, the natural reaction is they're going to start using it. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a cycle here. They're going to come back with more requests, which is actually good news because that means they're using it. And that means we know that it's working, that they're interacting with it. All right, so what would you say is a percentage of staff you have today that could benefit from a dashboard specific for them? All right, someone was real quick and just said 100%, right? And that's great. So we really do want to get these goals aligned around our teams, right? Of having their core metrics in front of them, some of those KPIs, and some of these can be just absolutely organization-wide, that we can keep a couple of numbers in front of them that everybody kind of knows their point of, hey, here's how we can see where this metric is, and we have that in front of us. You know, I think Coca-Cola has a stock ticker in front of everybody, right? But that's not the way any of you ministries are going to work, right? You want to see other aspects, and that can be some of those pieces that can be shared. Very cool. All right, so there are some next steps for some of you. Some of you, we need to add columns and filters, and we've got a support article on our training site. You can click this link and it will take you right there. And so you can bookmark that and come to it. If you need a quote, if you said something, hey, this is out of my league, I want a quote, I want to know what it's like to get these things, and you have something you know and you can define it. The other thing, maybe I just need an assessment. And our team's here. We want to help you. We're glad to help you with any of this. We also want to empower you to say, hey, I need training and I want to take ownership of it. Maybe we build it and you take ownership. Maybe you take ownership and you build it. That's wonderful. As the head of sales, I am incentivized to sell you things, but I also want to say, I want to equip you to take this and do what you need to do with it. Now, if you need us to build it, we're here to support you. But also, we're here to support you in training and letting you take this further, because when you guys are succeeding, that is our partnership. And that's really what we've built all these tools for. And maybe you just say, hey, I need access to the business intelligence tool. I've used what I have. Email support at WM Tech, let them know you want access to the business intelligence tool, and they'll onboard you to that tool. All right, so let's start looking at some of these questions and we'll look through them. All right, so one of them's asking about maybe activities using for ticket or case management. Yeah, that's one way you can do it, is you could take activities, and there's an activity type, and maybe you have types that are kind of your status of your ticket, and you can keep track of that. But yeah, that's one way you can do it. All right, anybody else got any questions? That was my only question. All right, while we're thinking of questions, let me switch my screen and we'll do our drawing. All right, Jamie, congratulations. All right. Asking about the progress bar on your applicants. That's a module that can be displayed on the CRM detail page. So that's a way that you can you just publish that there instead of some of the other things. Now, if there's other users who want to make sure, maybe we do need a unique CRM detail page for mobilization teams. What can't be done in dashboards, Rob? You know, I think there's a lot of creativity here that can be applied to this. I'm sure there's a long list, but there's a long list of what can be done here. Yeah, so what's just not really optimized, and really there's a lot you can do in dashboards that's totally fine. Yeah, Alex, there's a lot to find on the dashboard, or for where can we find more access on dashboards? You're welcome to, there's a lot of resources of modules and how to do that on the training site. There's some videos on this. Our support team will be happy to point you in the direction of items that could help you. But yeah, that's the place to start there. All right.
Give them an announcement for next week.
Yeah. So again, we'll have the automation processing and the automated processes in SiteStacker next week, or not next week, 2 weeks from now. You can sign up now for that, and that's where we'll really take a deep dive into both the Motion 2 tool, the flowchart mapping of really making a plan for automation, Spark coming into automation, and where we can do data automations before we do workflow, because workflow is great for data collection and task process, but then there's also that just automated firing of when this happens, we want that to happen immediately. And so there'll be quite a few sessions on that, and then go check out our sessions, vote for it. What you want to see is what we're going to do, and so we really do want to hear from you guys. That's part of our data analysis, right? Is we need to do this data collection from you guys. And so we really appreciate all of you spending your time with us today, and it was a pleasure. So thank you.